Every night, the mind enters a world that feels real, yet it is built in darkness inside the sleeping brain. Dreams rise from memory, emotion, and hidden patterns of activity, while the deeper laws of matter quietly hold everything together. In this journey, the mystery moves from the vast universe to the smallest foundations of reality, asking what dreams reveal about consciousness and what reality may still be hiding. Before drifting deeper, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with this quiet exploration into the quantum mystery of dreams and consciousness. Reality begins in the outer world before it becomes an experience. It rests in the room, in the air, in the slow movement of light across walls, in the quiet pressure of gravity holding every object in place. The sleeping body belongs to this ordinary setting, surrounded by matter that appears firm, continuous, and familiar. A bed keeps its shape, a floor remains beneath it, a window separates indoor air from the larger atmosphere beyond. Dust rests on surfaces and sometimes drifts through narrow beams of light. The world seems still, yet it is never truly motionless. Air molecules move in every direction. Heat passes through fabric, wood, glass, and skin. Sound waves travel through the room even when they are too soft to attract attention. The outer world offers the stable stage on which sleep occurs, and this stability is not an illusion in daily life. It is the large-scale order produced by many small parts acting together. Matter in the room is made of atoms, but at this outer level it behaves as furniture, cloth, walls, and air. A pillow is not experienced as a cloud of particles. It is experienced as a soft object because countless atoms hold together in patterns that resist pressure and return gently after being compressed. A blanket holds warmth because its fibers trap small pockets of air, slowing the movement of heat away from the body. A wall blocks wind because its material structure is dense enough to stop most moving air. These simple surroundings are built from microscopic activity, yet they form a broad reality that is dependable. The scientific word for this broad level is macroscopic, meaning large enough to be seen and handled without instruments. In the macroscopic world, objects have positions, surfaces, weights, textures, and temperatures that remain steady enough for life to move through them. Light gives the outer world its visible form. During evening, daylight weakens as the sun sinks below the horizon, and artificial lamps often replace it with warmer, smaller pools of brightness. Light is electromagnetic radiation, a form of energy that travels through space and interacts with matter. Some light reflects from pale walls, some is absorbed by dark fabric, and some passes through glass. The eye receives reflected light when it is open, but the room keeps reflecting and absorbing light after the eyelids close. Darkness is not the disappearance of physical reality. It is only a condition in which little visible light reaches the eyes. The objects remain, the surfaces remain, and the geometry of the room continues without needing to be observed. In this sense, the outer world keeps its quiet independence. Sound also belongs to this surrounding layer. A distant vehicle, a settling beam, a faint movement of air through a vent, or the low hum of an appliance may pass through the room as vibrations. Sound is a pressure wave moving through matter, usually air. It needs a medium, and the air of the room carries it by tiny compressions and expansions. Many sounds are too slight to shape attention, but they remain physical events. A floorboard does not speak. Yet it may expand or contract with changes in temperature and humidity. A pipe may shift as water cools inside it. Wind may press unevenly against the outside of a building. These sounds come from matter responding to conditions, and they remind the outer world that stillness often means only slow change. Temperature forms another quiet boundary around sleep. Warmth flows from warmer regions to cooler regions through conduction. convection, and radiation. Conduction is heat passing through direct contact, as when warmth moves from a body into a sheet. Convection is heat carried by moving air, as when cooler air circulates through a room. Radiation is heat carried as infrared energy, which objects emit according to their temperature. These processes do not stop during the night. They continue gently, shaping how the room feels and how objects settle into balance. A glass window may cool faster than an interior wall. A thick blanket may change temperature slowly. A metal lamp base may feel cooler than wood because it conducts heat more efficiently. The outer world is full of such differences, small and steady. Time also surrounds the sleeping body, though time is not an object in the room. Clocks measure regular changes, such as the vibration of a quartz crystal or the motion of hands across a dial. Beyond the room, Earth rotates, carrying the surface through cycles of day and night. This rotation gives the familiar rhythm of darkness and light. The wider planet moves through space around the sun, but from inside a quiet room, that motion appears as the slow pattern of seasons, dawns, and evenings. Time in this outer layer is measured by change. Shadows lengthen, rooms cool, distant traffic fades, and the night advances by countless small physical events. The sleeping setting is therefore not outside time. It is held within continuous change that remains gentle enough to seem calm. Gravity gives the room its downward order. It holds the bed against the floor, pulls curtains into vertical folds, lets dust settle, and gives weight to every object. Gravity is the attraction between masses, and near Earth's surface it is experienced as a steady pull. It shapes the most ordinary details of the environment. Water rests level in a glass. Loose fabric hangs rather than floats. A book remains where it is placed unless another force moves it. The calm of a bedroom depends on this constant pull. Without it, objects would drift, fluids would gather into floating shapes, and the room would no longer offer the same quiet structure. Gravity does not need to be noticed to organize the outer world. It is always present as a background condition. Air fills the space between objects and forms an invisible environment. It is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, with smaller amounts of argon, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and trace gases. It presses gently on surfaces from all directions. This pressure is not felt as a heavy burden because bodies are adapted to it and internal pressures balance it. In a closed room, air may be nearly still, yet it continues to mix slowly. Warmer air tends to rise. Cooler air tends to sink. Moisture moves through it. Tiny particles remain suspended for a time before settling. The outer world is therefore not empty between solid things. It is filled with a transparent mixture that carries heat, sound, scent, and motion. The room belongs to a larger planet, and the planet belongs to a larger physical universe. Yet the outer layer needed for sleep is immediate and close. It is the room, the air, the light, the quiet sounds, the gravity, and the passage of time. Scientific understanding does not remove the calm from this setting. It deepens it by showing that ordinary stability comes from lawful activity at many scales. The surface of reality appears smooth, because enormous numbers of particles and forces combine into patterns that last. A blanket remains a blanket because its fibers hold together. A wall remains a wall because its materials maintain their structure. Night remains night because Earth turns steadily away from the sun. The outer world surrounds sleep with a dependable order, and within that order, reality keeps moving quietly, without needing to announce itself. The sleeping body remains in the outer room, yet its own surface begins to change as wakefulness loosens. Skin meets fabric, weight settles into the mattress, and muscles no longer hold the same small readiness that belongs to daytime movement. The body does not switch off. It shifts from an active posture of response into a state of regulated rest. This change is physical before it becomes inward. It can be seen in slower motion, quieter breathing, softer limbs, and a reduced need to adjust to every small event around it. The world still offers sound, light, gravity, and temperature, but the body answers them with less urgency. It keeps protecting life, yet it spends less energy on outward action. Posture is one of the first visible signs of this transition. During waking hours, the body constantly makes small corrections. Muscles in the neck, back, face, and limbs help hold the head upright, guide the eyes, support the spine, and prepare the hands and feet for action. Near sleep, many of these muscles reduce their work. The shoulders may lower, the jaw may soften, the hands may loosen from a half-curled position. The legs rest more heavily against the surface beneath them. Gravity becomes more noticeable in the shape of the body because fewer muscles resist it. This does not mean weakness. It means energy is being redistributed. The body remains alive and organized, but its outer form becomes quieter. Breathing follows a slower rhythm as rest deepens. In waking life, breathing changes often with movement, speech, attention, and emotion. A body standing, walking, or speaking demands rapid adjustments in oxygen intake and carbon dioxide release. In sleep, the need for immediate change usually decreases. Breaths often become more regular, with the chest and abdomen rising and falling in steadier patterns. The airways remain open enough for air to pass into the lungs, where oxygen crosses into the blood and carbon dioxide moves out. This exchange is continuous. It does not depend on awareness. The body measures the chemical state of the blood and adjusts breathing through automatic control systems that keep life stable. The heart also changes its pattern. During waking activity, the heart responds to standing, walking, stress, digestion, heat, cold, and effort. As the body enters sleep, heart rate often slows and blood pressure often lowers during stable rest. These changes are not absolute, and they vary from person to person, but they show a broad shift away from outward demand. Blood continues to move through arteries, capillaries, and veins. It carries oxygen from the lungs, nutrients from digestion, hormones from glands, and warmth from deeper tissues. The heart remains active, but its work may become less forceful in quiet phases of sleep. The pulse becomes part of the body's slow internal order. Temperature regulation also changes. The body follows a daily rhythm that is linked to the cycle of light and darkness. In the evening and early night, core body temperature often begins to fall slightly. Warmth moves toward the skin, and blood vessels near the surface may widen, allowing heat to leave more easily. Hands and feet can become warmer as heat is released. Even while the deeper body cools, this cooling supports the transition into sleep, the surrounding room, bedding, clothing, and air movement all shape the process. A blanket may slow heat loss. A cool room may increase it. The body seeks balance, not a fixed number, and it adjusts through blood flow, sweating, shivering, and changes in posture. Hormones take part in the same slow movement. A hormone is a chemical messenger released into the blood, carrying instructions from one part of the body to another. Melatonin is closely linked with darkness and the timing of sleep. It is produced in greater amounts during the biological night and helps signal that the body is in a phase suited for rest. Melatonin does not force sleep by itself. It is one part of a wider timing system. Cortisol, another hormone, is often lower during the early part of the night and tends to rise toward morning. Growth hormone is commonly released in larger pulses during deep rest, supporting tissue repair and metabolic regulation. These rhythms show that sleep is not empty time. It is a structured condition of the whole body. Digestion becomes part of the quiet background. Food already eaten continues to be broken down and absorbed. The stomach, intestines, liver, pancreas, and other organs keep working, though their activity depends on timing. meal size, and individual physiology. Blood carries absorbed nutrients through the body, and the liver helps regulate fuel storage and release. During sleep, the body still needs energy for breathing, circulation, temperature control, immune activity, and cellular maintenance. It uses stored fuel and circulating nutrients to preserve stability. The sleeping body is not motionless inside. It is a living system with reduced outward behavior and continuing inward care. The immune system also remains active during rest. Immune cells move through blood and tissues, identifying damage, responding to infection, and helping maintain repair. Sleep and immune function influence one another in complex ways. When illness occurs, the body may produce signals that increase sleepiness, reduce activity, and support recovery. During ordinary sleep, immune processes continue without becoming noticeable. Inflammation, repair, and defense are regulated through many chemical pathways. These processes are not dramatic in normal rest. They are steady forms of maintenance, carried out in tissues that remain silent from the outside. Skin forms the boundary between the body and the room. It senses pressure, warmth, cold, irritation, and touch. Even when awareness fades, receptors in the skin can still respond to strong signals, and the body may shift position when pressure builds on one area. This protects circulation and reduces strain on muscles and joints. Small movements during sleep are normal. They help keep the body comfortable and preserve tissue health. Sweat glands may adjust moisture. Blood vessels may narrow or widen. The skin remains both shield and messenger, facing outward while helping regulate the inner climate. The body's movement into sleep is therefore a coordinated change across many systems. Muscles soften, breathing steadies, the heart settles, temperature drifts, hormones follow daily rhythms, digestion continues, immunity remains alert, and skin maintains the boundary with the surrounding world. None of these changes require conscious control. They arise from biological regulation shaped by evolution and daily habit. The body keeps its place in the room, under gravity, within air and time. Yet it changes its manner of being there. It becomes less prepared for action, and more devoted to restoration. Sleep begins as a physical quieting, a gradual withdrawal from the demands of the outer world, while life continues with careful order beneath the skin. Inside the resting body, the brain remains awake in its own way. It does not become silent when the eyes close or when the limbs lie still. It continues to use energy, move signals, regulate organs, and maintain the hidden balance that makes sleep possible. The brain is soft tissue, protected by the skull, surrounded by fluid, and supplied constantly by blood. It weighs only a small part of the body. Yet it uses much oxygen and fuel because its cells must preserve electrical and chemical activity without pause. Sleep reduces outward response, but it does not remove the brain from work. It changes the kind of work being done. The brain receives less deliberate information from the outside during sleep, yet it remains connected to the body. Nerves still carry signals from the skin, muscles, lungs, heart, stomach, and blood vessels. Many signals do not become conscious experience, but they still reach control systems that help regulate breathing, pressure, temperature, and movement. The brain listens without giving full attention. A soft sound may pass without reaction, while a stronger sound may cause a shift in posture or a brief return toward wakefulness. This selectivity shows that sleep is not sealed away from reality. It is a guarded state, with lowered response and continued protection. The brainstem helps maintain the most basic rhythms. It lies at the base of the brain, connecting the higher brain with the spinal cord. Within it are networks that help regulate breathing, heart activity, swallowing, arousal, and muscle tone. During sleep, these networks keep the body alive without conscious effort. They adjust the timing of breaths as carbon dioxide changes in the blood. They help manage signals that pass between the brain and the rest of the body. They also take part in the changing level of alertness that separates waking from sleep. The brainstem is not a simple switch. It is a set of linked systems that help the body move through rest while preserving life. The hypothalamus also has a central role. It is a small region deep within the brain, yet it helps coordinate temperature, hunger, thirst, hormone rhythms, and daily timing. It receives information about light through pathways from the eyes, and these signals help shape the body's internal clock across day and night. The hypothalamus also communicates with hormone systems and with regions that influence arousal. In sleep, its work is calm but important. It helps the brain match internal processes to the time of day and the needs of the body. The thalamus acts as a relay region for many sensory signals. In waking life, it helps route information toward the cerebral cortex, where perception becomes detailed and organized. During sleep, thalamic activity changes, and many outside signals are reduced before they reach full awareness. This does not mean that the senses stop. It means that the path from sensation to conscious attention is altered. The brain becomes less open to ordinary incoming information, which allows sleep to remain stable. At the same time, the thalamus remains active as part of the brain's internal rhythms. It helps shape electrical patterns that mark the sleeping brain as active rather than inactive. The cerebral cortex forms the folded outer layer of the brain. It supports perception, movement planning, language, memory, attention, and many forms of thought. During sleep, the cortex does not rest as a uniform surface. Different regions may become more or less active according to the state of the brain and body. Some areas reduce their connection with the outer world. Others take part in the internal processing. The cortex contains billions of neurons, and each neuron may connect with thousands of others. Even when consciousness fades, this network remains alive with changing patterns. The sleeping brain is therefore not an empty room. It is a living landscape of signals that rise, fall, join, and separate. The hippocampus, a structure deep within the temporal part of the brain, is important for memory. During sleep, it participates in processes that help stabilize and reorganize information from waking life. Research supports the idea that sleep contributes to memory consolidation, which means the strengthening and integration of memory over time. This process is not a simple recording. Memories are distributed across networks, and sleep appears to help adjust those networks. Some details may be strengthened, some may fade, and some may connect with older knowledge. The exact relationship between these processes and conscious dream experience remains uncertain, but the sleeping brain clearly remains involved in memory-related activity. The brain also clears and balances its internal environment. Neurons and supporting cells produce waste products as they work, and the brain must manage these materials. Studies suggest that fluid movement through brain tissue changes during sleep and may help remove certain metabolic waste products. This system is still under active scientific study, and its full importance in human health remains an area of continuing research. What is well established is that the brain is not idle. It maintains chemistry, repairs stress, regulates blood flow, and supports the cells that allow thought and awareness to return after sleep. Glial cells are part of this quiet maintenance. They are not neurons, but they support neurons in many ways. Some help form insulating layers around nerve fibers. Some help regulate the chemical environment around synapses, the small junctions where neurons communicate. Some take part in immune defense within the brain. During sleep, these support cells remain active in preserving the conditions that neural signaling requires. The brain is a community of cell types, and sleep involves the whole community. Blood flow continues to feed this tissue. Blood carries oxygen and glucose, a simple sugar that serves as a major fuel. The brain stores little energy compared with its constant need, so circulation must remain steady. Small blood vessels adjust to local demand. Active regions often receive more blood, while other regions may require less. Sleep changes the pattern of demand without ending it. The sleeping brain still burns fuel, consumes oxygen, and produces heat. The brain's activity during sleep is organized, not careless or empty. It follows biological rules shaped by anatomy, chemistry, and daily rhythms. Regions communicate through electrical impulses and chemical messengers. Control systems lower outward responsiveness while preserving internal regulation. Memory systems remain involved in the handling of experience. Support cells and fluid pathways help maintain the tissue itself. The skull holds this organ in darkness. But darkness is not emptiness. Within the quiet body, the brain continues to work as an active, changing organ, keeping life stable while conscious attention withdraws. Sleep stages give the sleeping brain a changing structure. Sleep is not a single flat condition, and it does not remain the same from the first settled breath to the later hours of the night. Researchers describe sleep by measuring brain activity, eye movement, muscle tone, breathing, heart rhythm, and other signs. These measurements show that the body and brain pass through repeating states. Each state has its own pattern, and each pattern reflects a different balance between outer response and inner regulation. The stages are not separate rooms with hard walls. They're gradual conditions in a slow cycle, with boundaries that shift gently from one state into another. The first stage is the lightest entrance into sleep. The body is still close to waking and awareness can return easily. Thoughts may become loose, brief, and less directed. Images may appear without forming a stable dream. A person in this stage may feel as if wakefulness is still present, even when the brain has already begun to change. Muscles relax, but they may still produce small twitches. Eye movements may slow beneath closed lids. Breathing begins to settle. This stage often lasts only a short time, but it marks the first step away from ordinary attention. The outer world has not disappeared, it has only become less commanding. In this light stage, the brain's electrical pattern begins to differ from waking activity. Brain activity is often measured with sensors placed on the scalp, a method called electroencephalography, which records changing electrical fields produced by large groups of neurons. During relaxed wakefulness, the brain may show steady rhythms linked with quiet attention. As sleep begins, slower, less regular patterns appear. The change is not the silence of a machine turning off. It is a new form of coordination. The brain begins to reduce its close tracking of the outside world, while internal signals become more prominent. The next stage is still considered light sleep, but it is more stable than the entrance stage. The body becomes less likely to respond to ordinary sounds or slight changes in the room. Heart rate may slow further, body temperature may continue its gentle decline, and muscles usually remain relaxed. Brain recordings show distinctive patterns during this stage. Sleep spindles appear as brief bursts of rhythmic activity, and K-complexes appear as larger waveforms. These patterns may help protect sleep and support memory processes, although their full roles remain under study. In this stage, the brain balances openness and protection. It can still respond to meaningful disturbance, yet it shelters sleep from many minor signals. This stable light sleep often occupies a large part of the night. It may seem ordinary from the outside because the body lies still and quiet, but the brain is organizing its state carefully. Sensory pathways are partly filtered. Muscle tone remains reduced. The sleeper can often be awakened more easily than during deeper sleep, but awareness does not usually remain near the surface. The stage is not empty time. It is a working state with repeating patterns that help the sleeping system hold together. Deeper sleep has a different character. It is often called slow-wave sleep because brain recordings show larger, slower waves across wide areas of the cortex. During this state, the body becomes harder to awaken by ordinary stimuli. Breathing and heart activity tend to become slower and more regular. Muscles remain relaxed, though not fully still in every person. This stage is linked with physical restoration, immune regulation, hormone release, and some forms of memory processing. Scientific findings support these broad roles, while many details about how they interact remain under study. The slow waves of deep sleep reflect large populations of neurons shifting together between more active and less active states. This broad rhythm is different from the alert patterns of waking. It shows that the sleeping brain can become highly ordered in a quiet way. The cortex does not simply stop. It moves in slow coordination, like a dark field responding to a steady wind. This image remains only a guide, because the true process is electrical, chemical, and cellular. The brain is held in a broad rhythm that supports stability. Another major state is rapid eye movement sleep. In this state, the eyes move quickly beneath the lids. Breathing and heart rhythms may become more variable, and many muscles of the body are strongly inhibited. This inhibition helps keep most dream-related movement from being acted out. The brain's activity becomes closer in some ways to waking patterns, though the person remains asleep. Dreams can occur in different stages, but vivid. Story-like dreaming is often associated with rapid eye movement sleep. The body's quiet, yet the brain may generate rich internal experience. Rapid eye movement sleep is not a simple return to waking. It has its own rules. Sensory input from the outside remains reduced, and the body's large muscles are mostly held in a state of low activity. Brain regions involved in emotion and imagery can be active, while systems linked with steady self-monitoring may differ from waking. This helps explain why dream experience can feel present and intense without being judged in the same way as waking events. The stage is real in the body and brain, even though the scenes within it are internally generated. Across the night, sleep stages repeat in cycles. The order and length of the stages can change as the night continues. Deep sleep is often strongest earlier in the night, especially after long wakefulness, while rapid eye movement sleep often becomes longer in later cycles. These patterns are common, but they are not identical for every person or every night. Stress, illness, age, medicines, light, noise, and irregular schedules can alter sleep structure. The stages remain useful scientific categories because they describe reliable patterns. Yet natural sleep is always a living process, not a perfect chart. The mystery of sleep narrows at this stage. The body lies in the room, the brain remains active, and sleep unfolds through measured states. Light sleep opens the passage away from waking. Stable light sleep protects the resting system. Deep sleep brings broad, slow rhythms and reduced responsiveness. Rapid eye movement sleep brings vivid interactivity with a mostly quiet body. Together, these stages show that sleep is organized from posture and breath to measured brain states and changing awareness. The sleeping person moves through structured layers of rest, each one held by the body and shaped by the brain. The dreaming mind appears within sleep as experience without open eyes. The body remains in the room, resting under blankets, breathing in air, held by gravity. Yet the mind may seem to stand in another place. A street may appear, or a field, or a childhood house, or a face that is partly known and partly invented. These scenes are not received from the outside in the ordinary way. They are formed within the sleeping brain as patterns of perception, memory, feeling, and imagination combine. A dream is not a separate world outside physical reality. It is an experience made by the brain while the body remains mostly still. Dreams can include sight, sound, movement, touch, and emotion. Vision is often strong, even when the eyes are closed and the room is dark. The mind may see color, distance, motion, and shape. It may move through spaces that feel continuous, even when their structure changes suddenly. Sound may appear as voices, music, wind, footsteps, or unclear noise. The dreamer may feel walking, falling, reaching, hiding, or waiting, although the muscles of the body do not usually carry out those actions. The sleeping brain can build a sense of presence from internal activity. It can create the feeling of being somewhere, even when the body has not moved. The dream scene often has its own simple certainty while it is happening. Events may connect in unusual ways, yet they may feel natural inside the dream. A room may become a forest without surprise. A familiar person may have a different face, and the change may not disturb the story. Time may stretch, compress, or lose its ordinary order. The mind accepts much of this because the systems that test reality in waking life do not work in the same steady way during dreaming. Dream experience is not judged by the same rules that guide waking thought. It is shaped by a different balance of brain activity. This does not mean that dreams are random noise. Many dreams show patterns. They often contain places, concerns, faces, activities, and moods related to waking life, though changed and recombined. A dream may borrow from recent events, older memories, repeated fears, ordinary routines, or small details noticed without much attention during the day. The brain does not replay life like a perfect recording. It builds scenes from traces. Some traces are clear, and others are faint. Some belong to personal memory, while others belong to general knowledge about rooms, roads, bodies, animals, weather, and social situations. The dreaming mind uses these materials to create experience. Dreams also show that perception is an active process. In waking life, the brain uses signals from the eyes, ears, skin, and body to construct a stable picture of the world. During dreaming, outside signals are greatly reduced, but the construction process continues. The brain can still generate space, objects, movement, and meaning. It can create a hallway with depth, a sky with brightness, or a face with expression. This shows that seeing is not only the passive arrival of light, it is also interpretation. In dreams, interpretation continues with little direct input from the room. The body may still contribute to dream experience. A blanket pressing against the skin, a change in temperature, a sound in the room, or a signal from the stomach or bladder can sometimes enter the dream in altered form. A distant noise may become part of a dream setting. Physical discomfort may appear as an obstacle or pressure inside the scene. These links are not always simple or direct, and many dreams unfold with little obvious connection to the surrounding room. Still, the sleeping mind is not fully sealed. It remains attached to the body, and the body remains attached to the world. Emotion often gives dreams their force, even when the dream content is unclear. A person may wake remembering fear, tenderness, confusion, relief, or sadness more strongly than the events themselves. During dreaming, emotional systems can be active, and the mind may build scenes around a mood. Sometimes the story seems to explain the feeling. At other times, the feeling appears first, and the scene gathers around it. Scientific research supports a close relationship between dreaming and emotional processing. While the exact purpose of many dream experiences remains uncertain, what is clear is that dreams are not only pictures, they are lived states of feeling. Dreams vary widely. Some are vivid and memorable, some are brief and fade within moments, some have a clear sequence, while others appear as fragments. Some are calm, ordinary, and almost like waking life. Others are strange, intense, or impossible in physical terms. Dream recall also varies. A person may dream and remember nothing, because memory formation during sleep does not always preserve the experience after waking. The absence of recall does not prove the absence of dreaming. It only shows that the bridge from sleep experience to waking memory is fragile. Rapid eye movement sleep is strongly associated with vivid dreaming. But dreams can also occur in other sleep stages. Dreams outside rapid eye movement sleep may be less story-like in some cases, but this is not a strict rule. The brain can form inner experience in different sleeping states. The content, intensity, and recall of dreams depend on the stage of sleep, the timing of awakening, the person's biology, and many other conditions. Dreaming is therefore not one single kind of event. It is a family of sleeping experiences with shared features and many variations. The dreaming mind reveals a quiet fact about consciousness. Experience can arise when the body is not acting on the world and when the senses are not fully open to it. The brain can create a present moment from internal patterns. It can give shape to memory, make space from neural activity, and place a sleeping self inside a scene. This does not make the dream physically external. It shows that the felt world of the mind is constructed during waking life, that construction is tightly guided by the outer world. During dreaming, it is guided more by inner activity. The body remains still, the room remains real, and the dream rises within the living brain as a temporary world of experience, fading as the sleeping state changes. Memory and emotion give dreaming a human shape. During the day, the brain receives more experience than it can preserve in full detail. It registers places, faces, words, actions, body sensations, small successes, unfinished tasks, discomfort, pleasure, warning, and relief. Most of this material does not become a clear, lasting memory. Some parts remain only briefly. Some are stored for longer. Some are linked with older knowledge and feeling. During sleep, the brain does not simply file these experiences in a neat order. It appears to sort, strengthen, weaken, and connect them through biological processes that continue while awareness is reduced. Dreams often rise from this changing material, carrying fragments of memory and traces of emotion into scenes that feel present for a time. A memory is not a single object kept in one place. It is a pattern distributed across many parts of the brain. The memory of a room may include visual features, spatial layout, sounds, smell, body position, language, and emotion. These features are supported by different systems that work together when the memory is recalled. The brain does not store experience like a page placed in a drawer. It stores change in living tissue. Connections between neurons become more or less likely to influence one another. Groups of cells learn to activate together. The result is a pattern that can be partly rebuilt later. Sleep seems to help some of these patterns become more stable. Memory consolidation is the process by which memories become more durable and better integrated with earlier knowledge. Research shows that sleep supports this process, especially for some forms of learning. A skill practiced during waking hours may become smoother after rest. Newly learned facts may be better retained. Emotional events may be processed in ways that change how they are remembered. These findings do not mean that every dream has a direct purpose or that every sleeping image solves a hidden problem. The evidence is more careful than that. Sleep supports memory, but the exact connection between dream content and memory processing remains uncertain. The hippocampus is important in forming and reorganizing many memories of events. During waking experience, it helps bind together the parts of a scene so that an event can later be remembered as a whole. During sleep, studies show that patterns related to recent experience can be reactivated. Reactivation means that a neural pattern linked with a waking event appears again in a changed form. This may help transfer or coordinate memory information with wider networks in the cortex. The process is not a simple replay that consciousness watches. It is a quiet biological activity, usually hidden from awareness, and dreams may sometimes draw from the same changing traces. Emotion gives memory weight. A neutral event and a frightening event are not stored in exactly the same way. Strong emotion can make some details easier to remember, while leaving other details unclear. The amygdala, a small deep brain region involved in detecting emotional importance, helps shape the response to threat, reward, and social meaning. It works with memory systems, stress hormones, attention, and body signals. During sleep, emotional memories may be handled differently from ordinary facts. The brain may revisit the feeling tone of an event, soften some responses, or preserve important warning signals. The details are complex, and research continues, but the link between sleep, emotion, and memory is well supported. Dreams often contain emotional traces rather than exact scenes. A person may dream of searching, losing, arriving late, meeting someone, escaping danger, or returning to a familiar place. These dream events may not match a real event from the day, yet they can carry the mood of waking life. Anxiety may become a corridor with no clear exit. Grief may become a room filled with absent faces. Relief may become open land or quiet water. These images do not prove a secret message. They show how the dreaming brain can give form to feeling through memory fragments and imagined settings. Recent experiences can appear in dreams, sometimes changed and mixed with older material. This is often called the day residue, meaning that elements from recent waking life remain active enough to influence dreams. A conversation, a task, a face, a sound, or an image may appear later in altered form. Older memories also enter, especially those connected by theme or emotion. A childhood location may hold a current worry. A present relationship may appear in the shape of an old figure. The dream does not need to preserve chronological order. It can combine memories by feeling, pattern, and association rather than by date. The brain also forgets during sleep, and forgetting is part of healthy memory. If every impression remained equally strong, thought would become crowded and inefficient. Sleep may help reduce the strength of some connections while preserving others. This idea is supported by research on synaptic balance, though the full picture remains incomplete. Forgetting does not mean failure. It helps the brain keep useful structure. Dreams may arise while this balance is being adjusted, but a dream is not a direct map of the adjustment. It is an experience that appears alongside many hidden processes. Emotional regulation during sleep may help the waking mind meet difficult experiences with less intensity. Some studies suggest that rapid eye movement sleep may change the emotional charge of certain memories, although findings are still developing and not every person responds in the same way. After sleep, a distressing memory may remain clear, but its immediate force can sometimes feel different. In other cases, bad dreams or nightmares may keep emotional distress active. This is especially true after trauma, stress, illness, or disrupted sleep. Sleep can support regulation, but it is not always gentle or complete. Dreams show memory in a softened and unstable form. They borrow from experience without obeying ordinary evidence. They place old and new traces together, attach feelings to changing images, and create scenes that may fade quickly after waking. The scientific view stays measured. Sleep supports memory and emotion. Dreaming often reflects memory and emotion. Yet the exact meaning of a single dream cannot be read as if it were a fixed code. It is better understood as a living construction from a brain that is resting, sorting, feeling, and preserving itself. In the sleeping mind, memory does not lie still. It loosens, joins, fades, strengthens, and carries emotion through the quiet hours, shaping dreams from the traces of a life that continues inward while the body remains at rest. Neural networks carry the sleeping mind inward from single memories and emotions into the larger patterns that allow experience to take shape. A neural network is a connected group of nerve cells whose activity influences other cells in the group. In the brain, these networks are not arranged like simple wires leading to one command center. They are broad, overlapping systems. Some support vision, movement, body awareness, memory, and emotion, while many do not belong to only one task. They share information through changing activity, and from that activity the mind receives scenes, meanings, and feelings. During sleep, these networks continue to work without the steady guidance of the outside world. In waking life, the brain builds perception by combining signals from many regions. The eyes send information about light and contrast. The ears send information about vibration. The skin sends information about pressure and temperature. Muscles and joints send information about position. The brain joins these streams into a usable world, not by placing every signal in one small location, but by coordinating activity across many areas. A face, for example, is not only a pattern of light. It is also identity, expression, memory, and emotional importance. Different networks contribute to these features. The waking mind feels the result as one face, but the result is produced by cooperation across distributed tissue. Dreaming shows that this cooperation can continue when outside input is reduced. Visual networks may become active enough to form shapes, motion, color, and depth. Memory networks may provide familiar places or people. Emotional networks may give the scene urgency, comfort, sadness, or uncertainty. Movement networks may support the feeling of walking or reaching, even when the body does not act. These networks do not need a separate inner observer to arrange the dream. Their activity organizes itself through learned connections and present conditions. The dream appears as a whole because many processes become coordinated for a time. The brain has no single theatre where the whole dream is displayed for another part of the brain to watch. Ordinary language can make consciousness sound as if a small watcher sits inside the head. But science finds no such central watcher. Instead, experience appears to depend on activity spread across networks that communicate and integrate information. Integration means that separate pieces become linked strongly enough to function together. A dream scene may contain space, movement, memory, and feeling because networks that support those features are temporarily joined. The unity of the dream is an achievement of coordination, not a picture shown on an inner screen. Some networks are more active during rest and inward thought than during focused work on the outside world. One widely studied system is often called the default mode network. It includes regions involved in self-related thought, memory, imagination, and the sense of moving through personal time. During waking rest, when attention is not fixed on a demanding task, this network often becomes more active. During sleep and dreaming, its behavior changes with sleep state, but its relation to memory and inward experience makes it important for understanding how the mind can build scenes from within. It does not create dreams alone. It works with many other systems. Attention networks help direct the mind toward important signals during waking life. They support the selection of one sound among many, one task among many, one object among many. During sleep, these networks do not operate in the same outward way. The brain becomes less tied to the room, the clock, and the ordinary flow of information through the senses. This reduced outward selection may allow internal patterns to gain more influence. A memory fragment, an emotion, or a bodily signal may become the center of a dream scene. The mind does not choose this in the usual deliberate sense. The balance of network activity shifts, and the experience follows. Control networks also change during dreaming. In waking life, parts of the frontal cortex help evaluate plans, hold goals, compare events with known reality, and inhibit actions that do not fit the situation. During many dreams, this kind of steady evaluation is altered. The dream may accept contradictions and sudden changes. A place may change form, a task may appear without context, or an impossible event may feel ordinary. This does not mean that the brain has lost all order. It means that the order is different. Networks that normally test events against waking reality are not guiding experience with the same strength. The sense of self in dreams also depends on networks. Sometimes the dream includes a clear self located inside the scene, moving and feeling as if present. Sometimes the self is vague, or the dream is remembered more as observation than participation. Body-related networks help create the feeling of position, balance, movement, and ownership. In waking life, these networks are guided by strong signals from muscles, joints, skin, and the inner ear. In sleep, many of those signals are reduced or handled differently. The brain may still create a body within the dream, but that body is a construction from internal patterns rather than a direct report from moving limbs. Neural networks are shaped by history. Every experience leaves some trace in the likelihood that certain cells and regions will act together again. Repeated paths become easier to use. Skills become smoother. Fears may become more easily triggered. Familiar places become easier to imagine. This history matters during sleep because the dreaming brain draws from networks already shaped by life. It does not create from nothing. It creates from learned patterns, recent traces, older memories, body states, and emotional conditions. A dream can feel strange because the combinations are unusual, but the materials belong to the brain's own history. During sleep, this flexibility continues in a quiet form. Networks that handle waking experience may reactivate. Networks that support emotion may join with networks that support images. Networks that guide body action may create movement within a dream while outward movement remains limited. The mind becomes a changing pattern of linked activity, not a substance separate from the brain. This view places the wonder of dreaming inside the living organization of the brain. Many cells act together, and from their coordination comes a scene, a feeling, a presence, and a temporary world. The dream is not held in one cell or one region. It arises across a networked organ, where countless small activities combine into the quiet experience of a sleeping mind. Brainwaves bring the inward path to the measured rhythms of the sleeping brain. These waves are not waves of water or air. They are patterns of electrical activity produced by large groups of neurons acting in changing coordination. Sensors placed on the scalp can detect these patterns as tiny shifts in voltage, because active neurons create electrical fields that spread through brain tissue, skull, and skin. The method does not record every single cell. It records the combined activity of many cells, especially in the outer brain. From this broad signal, researchers identify rhythms that help describe wakefulness, drowsiness, deep sleep, and dreaming. The waking brain often shows faster, smaller patterns when attention is active. During relaxed wakefulness, slower rhythms may become clearer, especially when the eyes close. As sleep begins, the pattern changes again. The brain does not fall into silence. It changes its timing. Some groups of neurons fire together, pause together, or shift between active and less active states. These changing rhythms show that the brain is not a smooth glow of constant activity. It is a living system of pulses, cycles, and coordinated movements. In light sleep, brainwaves become less like steady waking attention and more like drifting organization. The first entrance into sleep often contains slower activity, mixed with brief fragments of waking rhythm. The person may no longer track the room clearly, yet the brain remains near the surface of awareness. A sound may still bring a return to waking. A slight movement may still occur. The measured waves show this unstable border. They carry signs of relaxation, withdrawal, and continued sensitivity. The outer world is not fully closed away, but the brain's rhythm is no longer shaped mainly by deliberate attention. In more stable light sleep, special patterns appear. Sleep spindles are brief bursts of rhythmic activity that usually last only a short time. They look like small clusters of faster waves rising and fading within the slower sleep pattern. K-complexes are larger, slower events that stand out clearly in brain recordings. These features are associated with the second stage of sleep, and they show that the brain is actively organizing rest. Sleep spindles may help reduce the effect of minor outside signals and may support memory processes. K-complexes may reflect responses to internal or external events while helping preserve sleep. Their exact roles remain under study, but their presence shows that light sleep is an organized condition, not a blank interval. Deep sleep is marked by slow waves. These waves are large and steady compared with the smaller patterns of waking activity. They reflect broad coordination across many areas of the cortex. Neurons tend to move together between more active periods and quieter periods. This rhythm gives deep sleep its measured character. The body often becomes harder to awaken, and the brain becomes less responsive to ordinary disturbance. The slow waves do not mean that the brain is weak or inactive. They mean that large networks are working in a shared rhythm that differs from waking thought. Slow waves also show how the sleeping brain can become both quiet and powerful. Each wave represents a broad shift in neural state. Many cells reduce activity, then become more active again. This cycling may support restoration, memory processing, and the recalibration of neural connections. The evidence links deep sleep with important biological functions, although no single function explains all of it. The rhythm itself is a sign of deep coordination. Instead of many scattered activities competing for attention, the cortex settles into a slower order. Rapid eye movement sleep has a different electrical character. Brain activity becomes more mixed and often resembles waking patterns more than deep sleep does. The waves are usually faster and less dominated by the large, slow rhythms of deep sleep. This fits the state in which vivid dreaming often occurs, because the brain is internally active while the body remains mostly still. The measured pattern does not mean that the brain is awake. It means that the sleeping brain has entered a state with strong inner activity and reduced outward movement. The difference between waking and this state lies not only in the speed of the waves, but in how brain regions communicate and how the body is controlled. Brain waves are useful because they make hidden states visible to measurement. Without them, sleep would be judged mainly by outward stillness, closed eyes, and reduced response. Recordings show that the same still body can contain different brain states. A person in deep sleep, a person in stable light sleep, and a person in rapid eye movement sleep may look similar from a distance, yet the measured rhythms differ. These differences allow researchers to map sleep as a changing process rather than a single condition. The waves give sleep a pattern that can be studied carefully. These rhythms arise from circuits within the brain. The cortex and thalamus play major roles in shaping sleep rhythms. The thalamus can help regulate the flow of sensory signals and participate in rhythmic activity with the cortex. During certain sleep states, these loops support spindles, slow waves, and other patterns. The brainstem and other regions influence the level of arousal and the transitions between states. The result is not produced by one clock alone. It comes from interacting systems that adjust one another through chemistry, electrical activity, and bodily need. Brainwaves also vary from person to person and across life. Children often show strong deep sleep. Older adults may experience changes in sleep depth and continuity. Illness, stress, medicines, alcohol, light exposure, and irregular schedules can alter the measured pattern. A single night may not represent a person's whole sleep life. Sleep is sensitive to the condition of the body and the environment, yet the main rhythms remain recognizable enough to guide scientific study. They provide a language of timing for the sleeping brain. The mystery at this level is measured but still incomplete. Brainwaves show when the brain enters different states, how deeply it rests, and when it becomes internally active in dreaming. They show broad coordination, but they do not fully explain the content of experience. A wave pattern can suggest a sleep stage, but it does not reveal every image, emotion, or memory passing through the mind. The rhythm is the visible surface of deeper activity. It is like seeing the slow movement of shadows and knowing that many unseen motions produce them. In the sleeping brain, waves rise and fall through living tissue, marking the quiet order of consciousness as it changes through the night. Synapses and signals carry the inward path from broad brain waves to the narrow places where neurons influence one another. A neuron is a nerve cell that receives, processes, and sends information through electrical and chemical changes. It has branching parts that collect signals, a cell body that supports life, and a long fiber called an axon that can carry an impulse to other cells. A synapse is the small junction where one neuron communicates with another cell. It may be a tiny gap crossed by chemical messengers or a more direct electrical connection. Through these junctions, the brain becomes a tissue of conversation without words, a living network of pulses and responses. The electrical signal inside a neuron is called an action potential. It is a brief change in voltage that travels along the axon when the cell reaches a threshold. Voltage means a difference in electrical charge across the cell membrane. The membrane keeps charged particles separated in a controlled way, and this separation stores the possibility of a signal. When the neuron is pushed strongly enough by incoming activity, channels in the membrane open and close in sequence. Charged particles move, the voltage changes, and the impulse travels. This event is fast, but it is not mysterious in a supernatural sense. It is the result of living membranes, charged particles, and precise biological control. When the impulse reaches the end of an axon, it arrives at the presynaptic terminal, the sending side of a synapse. In many synapses, the signal cannot simply jump as electricity across the gap. Instead, it causes small packets of chemical messenger to be released. These packets are held in tiny sacs inside the sending cell. When the impulse arrives, the sacs move toward the cell membrane and release their contents into the synaptic gap. The gap is extremely small, yet it is wide enough that the message must cross as molecules moving through fluid. The receiving cell carries receptors on its surface, and these receptors respond when the messenger binds to them. The receiving side of the synapse changes according to the message it receives. Some signals make the next neuron more likely to fire its own action potential. These are excitatory signals, meaning they push the receiving cell toward activity. Other signals make the next neuron less likely to fire. These are inhibitory signals, meaning they hold activity back. The brain depends on both. Excitation without restraint would become unstable. Inhibition without excitation would silence useful activity. Thought, perception, sleep, and dreaming require balance between movement and restraint. Every moment of brain activity is shaped by this balance across countless synapses. A single neuron often receives signals from many other neurons. Some arrive near the cell body, some arrive on branching extensions, and some arrive farther away. The cell does not respond to each signal as a separate command. It sums them through time and space. Weak signals may fade, repeated signals may build, signals arriving together may combine, inhibitory inputs may cancel excitatory ones. The neuron becomes an integrating cell, weighing many influences before producing its own impulse. This simple principle, repeated across billions of cells, allows the brain to create complex patterns without a central director. Synapses are not fixed like soldered metal joints. They change with use. A synapse that is active often may become stronger. A synapse that is rarely used may weaken. New connections may form, and some connections may be removed. This capacity for change is called plasticity. Plasticity allows learning, memory, adaptation, and recovery. It also means that the sleeping brain is working with tissue shaped by past activity. The dreams and rhythms of sleep arise from networks whose synapses have been altered by waking life, development, habit, injury, emotion, and rest. During sleep, synaptic activity continues, but its pattern changes. The brain is not receiving and responding to the world in the same way as during waking attention. Signals still pass among neurons, but the flow is shaped by sleep stage, body state, and internal rhythms. In deep sleep, large groups of neurons may alternate between active and quieter phases. At the synaptic level, this means that many connections are being used in broad waves of coordination. In rapid eye movement sleep, many circuits show active signaling that can support vivid internal experience, while other systems reduce the movement of the body. The same synaptic machinery serves different global states. The strength of synapses may also be adjusted during sleep. Some scientific models propose that sleep helps rebalance the overall strength of connections after waking experience. During the day, learning and attention can strengthen many synapses. If strengthening continued without limits, the brain might use energy less efficiently and lose the ability to separate important signals from background activity. Sleep may help restore balance by reducing some connection strengths while preserving others. This idea remains an active area of research, and it does not explain all sleep functions. Still, it offers a careful way to understand sleep as maintenance of signaling networks. Chemical synapses need careful cleanup after a message is sent. If messenger molecules stay too long in the gap, the receiving cell would be pushed beyond the proper moment. The brain uses several methods to end a signal. Some messenger molecules are taken back into the sending cell. Some are broken down by enzymes. Some drift away from the receptor region. This clearing allows synapses to reset and respond again. The timing matters. Signals must be strong enough to influence the next cell but brief enough to preserve precision. The mind depends on such timing at a scale too small for direct experience. Electrical synapses work differently. In these junctions, cells are linked through channels that allow electrical current to pass more directly from one cell to another. Electrical synapses can synchronize groups of neurons quickly. They are less common than chemical synapses in many parts of the adult human brain, but they remain important in certain circuits. They show that neural communication is not one single method. The brain uses different forms of connection according to need, location, and function. Some communication is flexible and chemical, some is fast and direct. Together they support the coordination seen in brainwaves and the detailed activity beneath them. Synaptic signaling also depends on support cells around neurons. These cells help regulate the chemical environment, remove excess messenger molecules, provide metabolic support, and maintain the conditions that allow signals to remain clear. The synapse is therefore not only a meeting point between two neurons, it is part of a small local environment with fluid, membranes, receptors, support cells, and energy supply. This local environment must stay within narrow limits. Too much or too little of a chemical, too much excitation, too little inhibition, or poor energy supply can disturb the pattern. At this inward level, dreams and consciousness begin to look less like floating images and more like coordinated biological events. A dream scene depends on patterns of signaling across many synapses. A feeling depends on circuits whose connections have been shaped by memory and body state. A moment of awareness depends on neurons influencing one another with enough integration and order to form experience. No single synapse holds a whole dream. No single impulse carries the entire self. Yet each narrow gap helps make the larger pattern possible. Inside the sleeping brain, signals cross small spaces again and again, and from these crossings the quiet architecture of thought continues in darkness. Molecules of sleep carry the inward path from synaptic crossings into the chemical materials that regulate brain states. At this level, sleep is not only a pattern of waves or a network of cells, it is also a changing mixture of messengers, receptors, channels, enzymes, hormones, and proteins moving through living tissue. These molecules do not think by themselves. They do not contain dreams or awareness as separate objects. They shape the conditions under which neurons become active, quiet, connected, separated, stable, or ready to change. The sleeping brain depends on chemistry because every electrical signal is supported by molecular structure and controlled exchange. A neurotransmitter is a chemical messenger used by neurons to influence other cells. Some neurotransmitters increase the chance that a neuron will fire. Others reduce that chance. Some act quickly at a synapse, while others change the general state of a network more slowly. The brain uses many neurotransmitters at once, and their balance changes across waking and sleep. No single chemical creates sleep alone. Sleep emerges from shifting systems that promote wakefulness, reduce arousal, stabilize rest, and guide different sleep states. Adenosine is one molecule closely linked with sleep pressure. Sleep pressure means the growing biological need for sleep during time spent awake. As the brain uses energy, adenosine tends to accumulate in the spaces around cells. Higher adenosine levels are associated with increased sleepiness. Adenosine can reduce activity in some wake-promoting regions and help make sleep more likely. This does not make it a simple sleep switch. It is part of a wider system that includes circadian timing, body condition, light history, stress, and many other signals. Still, adenosine helps explain why wakefulness becomes harder to sustain after long activity. Gamma-aminobutyric acid is one of the main inhibitory neurotransmitters in the brain. Inhibitory means that it makes neurons less likely to fire. During the movement into sleep, inhibitory signaling helps reduce arousal in systems that normally keep the brain alert. It can quiet wake-promoting cells and allow sleep patterns to become stable. This chemical restraint is essential. A resting brain is not only a brain with less excitation, it is a brain actively held in a different balance. Inhibition shapes that balance by preventing networks from remaining in the same outward-facing state as waking life. Acetylcholine changes strongly across sleep states. It is involved in attention, learning, movement control, and rapid patterns of brain activity. During waking, acetylcholine supports active processing of the outside world. During deep sleep, its levels in parts of the brain are generally lower. During rapid eye movement sleep, acetylcholine becomes more active again in some circuits, helping support a brain state with vivid internal activity. This shifting pattern shows that sleep stages are chemical states as well as electrical states. The same molecule can support different functions depending on where it acts and what other systems are doing. Serotonin, norepinephrine, histamine, dopamine, and orexin also help regulate arousal and sleep. Serotonin and norepinephrine are linked with mood, attention, bodily regulation, and wakefulness. Histamine from cells in the hypothalamus helps maintain alertness, which is why medicines that block some histamine receptors can cause drowsiness. Dopamine is involved in motivation, reward, and movement, and it also influences wakefulness. Orexin, also called hypocretin, helps stabilize waking and prevent sudden unwanted shifts between states. Loss of orexin signaling is strongly linked with narcolepsy, a disorder involving unstable boundaries between waking and sleep. These chemicals form overlapping systems rather than a single chain of command. Receptors give these messengers their effects. A receptor is a protein on or inside a cell that responds to a specific chemical signal. A neurotransmitter only changes a receiving cell if the cell has the right receptor in the right place. Some receptors act like gates, opening channels that allow charged particles to move across the membrane. Others work more slowly through internal chemical pathways that change cell behavior over seconds, minutes, or longer. This means the same neurotransmitter can have different effects in different regions. The message depends not only on the chemical itself, but also on the receptor that receives it. Ion channels are central to neural activity. An ion is a charged particle, and channels are protein structures that allow certain ions to pass through the cell membrane. Sodium, potassium, calcium, and chloride ions help create the electrical behavior of neurons. When channels open or close, the voltage across the membrane changes. This allows action potentials to begin, travel, and end. During sleep, the behavior of ion channels helps determine whether neurons fire rapidly, fire slowly, pause together, or become less responsive. The broad rhythms of sleep depend on these small gates opening and closing with great precision. Calcium has a special role because it links electrical activity with chemical release. When an action potential reaches the end of a neuron, calcium channels open and calcium enters the presynaptic terminal. This entry helps trigger the release of neurotransmitter packets into the synaptic gap. Calcium also influences many processes inside cells, including gene activity, plasticity, and enzyme function. It must be tightly controlled. Too much or too little can disturb signaling in sleep. As in waking, calcium is part of the bridge between electrical events and chemical change. Proteins shape sleep in many ways. Some proteins form receptors and ion channels. Some help package neurotransmitters. Some break down chemical messengers after they have acted. Some help transport molecules back into cells. Others take part in the internal clock that gives the body a daily rhythm. Clock proteins rise and fall through cycles inside cells, helping regulate the timing of biological processes across day and night. These molecular cycles are not conscious, yet they help set the conditions under which sleep becomes likely at one time and waking becomes likely at another. Hormones also belong to this chemical level. Melatonin signals biological night and helps coordinate timing. Cortisol follows a daily rhythm that often rises toward morning and prepares the body for activity. Growth hormone is released in strong pulses during deep sleep and supports tissue repair and metabolic regulation. These hormones travel through blood rather than acting only at synapses. They show that sleep chemistry belongs to the whole body, not only the brain. The brain guides sleep. But the body's glands, the organs, and tissues take part in the same chemical order. The molecular level does not remove the mystery of dreams and consciousness. It makes the mystery more grounded. A dream depends on neural networks, but those networks depend on receptors, transmitters, channels, enzymes, and proteins. A sleeping state depends on brain waves, but those waves depend on cells whose membranes open and close through molecular machinery. Awareness fades and returns through changes that are biological, measurable, and delicate, inside the sleeping brain. Chemistry does not tell a story by itself. It creates the conditions in which signals can rise, quiet, combine, and become experience. The mind rests on molecules in motion, and sleep is one of the most careful arrangements of that motion. At the level of atoms, the sleeping brain is still matter, and matter follows quantum rules. An atom is a small structure with a dense nucleus and surrounding electrons. The nucleus contains protons with positive charge and neutrons with no electric charge. Electrons carry negative charge and are much lighter. In ordinary life, atoms are never seen directly by the eye, yet they build the proteins, water, salts, fats, sugars, and membranes that make the brain possible. The bed, the air, the skull, the blood, and the neurons are all made from atoms arranged in different patterns. At this inward scale, the familiar smoothness of the world gives way to a different kind of order. Quantum physics describes how matter and energy behave at very small scales. The word quantum means that certain physical properties come in discrete amounts rather than in any possible value. In large objects, these steps are usually too small to notice, so the world appears continuous. At the atomic scale, they matter. Electrons in atoms do not move like tiny planets following clear paths around a sun. They exist in states described by probabilities, which means that physics can predict possible results of a measurement and how likely each result is. This does not mean that anything can happen without limit. It means that nature has rules that are precise, but not always shaped like everyday intuition. The electron is often described through a wave function. A wave function is a mathematical description that contains information about the possible outcomes of measurement. It is not a small cloud that can be touched, and it is not an ordinary wave in water. It is a way of representing what can be known and predicted about a quantum system. When an electron belongs to an atom, its allowed states are limited by quantum rules. These states help determine how atoms bond with one another, how molecules form, and how matter keeps its structure. The chemistry of the brain rests on these allowed states. Chemical bonds are quantum arrangements between atoms. When atoms share or exchange electrons, they form molecules with shapes and properties. Water has its familiar behavior because oxygen and hydrogen atoms bond in a particular way. Proteins fold because atoms within them attract, repel, rotate, and settle into forms guided by electrical forces and quantum-based chemistry. Cell membranes hold together because lipid molecules arrange themselves in water through interactions explained by molecular physics. Every neurotransmitter, receptor, ion channel, and enzyme depends on the quantum behavior of electrons in atoms, but their biological functions appear at a larger chemical scale. The brain is warm, wet, and crowded with molecules. Its atoms move constantly. Water molecules rotate and collide. Ions drift through channels and fluid. Proteins vibrate, bend, and change shape. Neurotransmitters bind to receptors, then release or are removed. These events obey physical law, and quantum rules underlie the bonds and charges that make them possible. Yet the brain's ordinary activity is usually described well by chemistry, electricity, and biology, because the effects needed for signaling are large enough to be treated at those levels. A neuron firing is not explained by imagining a single mysterious particle deciding a thought. It is explained by coordinated movement of many ions through many channels in living tissue. Quantum uncertainty is one of the most famous features of small-scale physics. It means that some pairs of properties, such as position and momentum, cannot both be known with unlimited precision at the same time. This is not merely a limit of poor instruments. It is part of the structure of quantum theory. At the scale of atoms and particles, uncertainty shapes how systems behave. At the scale of a sleeping body, ordinary objects still have reliable positions and motions because they are made of enormous numbers of particles whose combined behavior becomes stable. The pillow remains under the head. The air remains in the room. The brain remains in the skull. Superposition is another quantum idea. It means that a quantum system can be described as a combination of possible states before measurement produces a definite result. This feature is real in experiments and is central to quantum physics. It should not be used loosely to say that a dream is physically in many realities, or that consciousness creates the universe. Such claims go beyond evidence. Dreams are experiences generated by brain activity during sleep. Quantum physics underlies the matter of the brain, but current scientific consensus does not show that dreams require special quantum states beyond ordinary molecular processes. Entanglement is a relation between quantum systems in which the state of one system is linked with the state of another in a way that cannot be explained by ordinary independent properties. Experiments confirm entanglement under controlled conditions. It is important in modern physics and quantum information science. In the brain, however, there is no accepted evidence that large-scale consciousness or dream imagery depends on long-lasting entanglement across neural tissue. The brain is a biological organ with strong thermal motion and constant interaction among molecules. These conditions make many delicate quantum arrangements difficult to preserve. At the atomic level, quantum rules remain true, but not every quantum feature becomes a useful biological signal. Measurement in quantum physics has a special meaning. It refers to an interaction that produces a definite outcome from a range of possibilities according to the theory. In popular language, measurement is sometimes confused with human awareness, but physics does not require a conscious mind to make every ordinary event definite. Particles interact with other particles, atoms interact with light, and molecules interact with their environments. These interactions happen throughout the universe without needing a person to observe them. Consciousness is part of biology. While quantum measurement is part of physical theory, no settled evidence shows that human awareness is needed to complete physical reality. The atomic level offers a careful view of what reality is hiding. It is not hiding a magical answer beneath dreams. It is hiding a layer of lawful strangeness that supports ordinary matter. Atoms are stable because quantum rules allow them to be stable. Molecules have shapes because electrons behave according to quantum limits. Chemistry works because small particles do not follow the same patterns as stones, rivers, or falling dust. The sleeping brain is made from this deep order, and every breath depends on it. Yet the dream itself remains a biological experience built from cells, signals, networks, memory, and emotion. Quantum physics forms the foundation of the material world, while the dreaming mind rises from the organized life of that material foundation. The warm brain places firm limits on delicate quantum behavior. It is made of water, salts, fats, proteins, sugars, and many other molecules packed into living tissue. It is not a cold, empty chamber. It is not isolated from contact. Blood moves through it. Heat passes through it. Ions cross membranes, and molecules collide continually. At the atomic level, quantum rules still apply, because all matter follows them. At the biological level, however, many special quantum states are quickly disturbed by the brain's warmth, wetness, and constant chemical activity. This boundary keeps careful science separate from unsupported claims about dreams and consciousness. A quantum state can sometimes preserve a delicate relation among possible outcomes. In laboratories, researchers can prepare particles, atoms, ions, or circuits so that they show superposition, entanglement, and interference under controlled conditions. Interference means that quantum possibilities can combine in ways that strengthen or weaken certain outcomes. These effects are measurable and real. They also require protection. The system must often be cooled, shielded, isolated, or carefully controlled so that the fragile relation is not disturbed by surrounding noise. The brain is the opposite of such isolation. It is warm because its cells are metabolically active and constantly using energy. It is wet because water is the main fluid in which its molecules move. It is crowded because proteins, ions, membranes, sugars, and dissolved substances occupy the space around and inside cells. Every molecule vibrates and collides with others. Every cell membrane exchanges material and charge. Blood flow brings oxygen and nutrients while carrying away waste. These interactions are essential for life, yet they are also sources of disturbance for delicate quantum arrangements. Life requires contact, and contact tends to make fragile quantum states lose their special order. Decoherence is the process by which a quantum system loses the observable features of superposition or interference through interaction with its environment. The word does not mean that matter becomes unreal. It means that the delicate relationships that allow quantum possibilities to act together become scrambled into the wider environment. Once that happens, the system behaves more like an ordinary classical system for practical purposes. Classical means the large-scale style of physics that describes objects with definite positions and motions in everyday conditions. Decoherence helps explain why tables, blankets, bodies, and brain tissue do not appear as visible mixtures of quantum possibilities. In a warm brain, decoherence is expected to happen extremely quickly for many proposed delicate states. A single molecule is surrounded by water, ions, proteins, and electrical fields from nearby charges. Its position, shape, and energy are constantly influenced by its neighbours. If a fragile quantum relation was spread across a large biological structure, each surrounding interaction would carry away information into the environment. the relation would become effectively unavailable before it could guide a slow biological process. This is why claims that ordinary thoughts or dreams depend on large, long-lived, quantum superpositions in the brain require strong evidence. Such evidence is not established. Neural signaling works on timescales and structures that are large compared with many quantum effects. An action potential involves the movement of many ions through many channels across a membrane. A synaptic event involves vesicles, receptors, neurotransmitters, calcium entry, and changes across a small but crowded space. These events are based on quantum chemistry at the level of bonds and charges, yet the useful signal is a collective biological event. It is robust because many molecules contribute. It does not require one isolated particle to remain in a delicate superposition long enough to decide the content of awareness. Thermal noise is one major limit. Thermal noise means random motion caused by temperature. In warm tissue, molecules do not sit still. They jiggle, rotate, bend, bump, and exchange energy. This random motion can blur very small delicate effects unless a biological structure has a way to protect or amplify them. Neurons use large voltage changes, many ions, and feedback systems that rise above ordinary molecular noise. A signal in the brain is meaningful because it is repeated, shaped, and strengthened across cells and networks. Fragile quantum coherence would need protection from the same warm motion that makes biological chemistry flexible and alive. The wet environment adds another limit. Water is not passive background, it is polar, meaning that one side of the molecule has a slight positive charge and another side has a slight negative charge. Because of this, water interacts strongly with ions, proteins, membranes, and other molecules. It helps dissolve salts, shape protein folding, and support the movement of charges. These properties are essential for brain function. They also mean that a molecule in the brain is continually disturbed by its surroundings. The environment interacts with it so often that delicate isolation is difficult. This boundary does not make the brain simple. It makes the brain a place where quantum foundations are mostly expressed through ordinary molecular behavior. Atoms bond, electrons shape chemical properties, ions carry charge, molecules absorb and release energy. All of this is quantum at its base. Yet a careful explanation must distinguish foundation from mechanism. The fact that chemistry rests on quantum physics does not mean that consciousness rests on exotic quantum computation. Many features of sleep and dreaming can be explained through neurobiology without invoking special quantum states. Some theories propose that consciousness may depend on quantum processes inside cells. These ideas remain controversial and are not part of established consensus. The main difficulty is not that quantum physics is absent from the brain. It is present everywhere matter exists. The difficulty is showing that specific delicate quantum states can survive, influence neural activity, and explain consciousness better than existing biological models, without strong evidence. Such claims remain speculative. A calm scientific account keeps them separate from what is already measured neurons fire. Synapses change, networks coordinate, brain waves shift, and dreams arise within sleep. The warm brain therefore hides no easy quantum doorway into a separate reality. Reality at small scales is strange, but biological tissue is noisy, wet, warm, and interactive. These conditions support life while limiting many fragile quantum effects. Dreams and consciousness may still feel mysterious because subjective experience remains difficult to explain fully, but their mystery does not by itself prove an exotic quantum cause. The sleeping brain rests inside ordinary matter, governed by deep quantum laws and shaped by biological constraints. Its warmth is part of life's condition, and it draws a clear boundary around what quantum behavior can plausibly do inside living neural tissue. Quantum biology brings the inward path to living systems where small quantum effects are accepted as part of normal function. This field does not say that every biological mystery is quantum in a special way. It studies cases where quantum physics helps explain how certain molecules absorb energy, move charge, transfer particles, or respond to weak signals. Because all chemistry rests on quantum rules, every organism is quantum at its foundation. Quantum biology is more specific. It asks when features such as tunneling, coherence, spin, or energy transfer matter directly to a biological process. The evidence is strongest in carefully studied molecular systems, not in broad claims about dreams. Photosynthesis is one important example. Plants, algae, and some bacteria use light to help convert carbon dioxide and water into energy-rich molecules. The first steps begin when pigments absorb photons, which are small packets of light energy. This energy must move through molecular structures toward reaction centers where charge separation can begin. Research suggests that quantum effects can help describe how excitation energy moves through some photosynthetic complexes. In certain experiments, energy transfer appears highly efficient, and quantum coherence may play a role under specific conditions. Coherence means that wave-like relations among possible energy paths remain organized for a time. The details remain complex, and living conditions differ from ideal laboratory settings. But photosynthesis shows that biology can use small-scale physical rules with remarkable precision. This does not mean that a leaf thinks with quantum awareness. It means that pigment molecules and proteins form structures where light absorption and energy movement occur at scales where quantum descriptions are necessary. The plant does not need to know the physics. Its molecules have been shaped by evolution into forms that make useful reactions more likely. At the outer level, a leaf is green and still. At the molecular level, it captures light through events that begin with quantum interactions. The accepted lesson is narrow and powerful. Life can build structures that guide small packets of energy in ways that ordinary large-scale intuition cannot fully describe. Enzymes offer another example. An enzyme is a protein that speeds a chemical reaction without being consumed by it. Many reactions in living cells would occur too slowly without enzymes. Some enzyme processes involve proton transfer or electron transfer. A proton is a positively charged particle found in atomic nuclei, and an electron is a negatively charged particle. In some cases, quantum tunneling may contribute to how these particles move during reactions. Tunneling means that a particle has a chance to pass through an energy barrier that it would not cross under ordinary classical expectations. This does not happen because the particle breaks rules. It happens because quantum rules describe particles through probabilities rather than fixed paths. Tunneling in enzymes remains a careful subject. It is not a magical shortcut. It occurs under specific molecular conditions, shaped by distance, energy, temperature, protein motion, and the structure of the active site where the reaction occurs. The enzyme may position atoms in a way that makes transfer more likely. It may also create a local environment that allows the reaction to proceed efficiently. Evidence supports quantum tunneling in some biological reactions, though the importance varies across systems. The broader point is that living chemistry can depend on particle behavior that is not captured fully by simple mechanical pictures. Animal magnetic sensing is another area where quantum biology may matter. Some birds and other animals can use Earth's magnetic field as part of navigation. One leading hypothesis involves molecules called cryptochromes, which are light-sensitive proteins found in living cells. When these molecules absorb light, they may form pairs of radicals. A radical is a molecule or atom with an unpaired electron. The spins of these electrons may be affected by magnetic fields. Spin is a quantum property related to angular momentum, though it is not simple spinning like a wheel. Changes in spin states could influence chemical outcomes, giving the animal a way to detect magnetic direction indirectly. The radical pair mechanism remains an active field of research. Evidence supports its plausibility, and cryptochromes are strong candidates in some species. but the full biological pathway from molecular response to animal navigation is still not completely settled. Magnetic sensing is difficult to study because it connects tiny chemical events with behavior across large distances. The scientific approach remains measured. It identifies molecules, tests mechanisms, and separates supported findings from uncertainty. In this way, quantum biology does not turn navigation into mystery beyond nature. It places the mystery inside testable chemistry. Smell has also been discussed in relation to quantum effects. The main accepted view is that odor molecules are recognized largely through shape, chemical properties, and interactions with receptors in the nose. Some hypotheses suggest that molecular vibrations and electron tunneling might contribute to odor detection in certain cases. This idea remains debated and is not established as the main explanation for smell. It shows the careful boundary of the field. A proposed quantum role must be supported by strong evidence and must explain observations better than existing models. Without that support, it remains a hypothesis rather than a conclusion. Quantum biology therefore works best when it stays close to molecules. It studies how light is absorbed, how energy moves, how electrons transfer, how protons cross barriers, and how spins respond to magnetic fields. These are events at the scale where quantum physics naturally operates. They can influence life because biological molecules are built from atoms and electrons, and because evolution can preserve structures that make useful physical effects reliable enough for survival. The results are often subtle. They do not require consciousness. They do not imply hidden messages in dreams. They show that living matter sometimes depends on the deep rules of matter in specific, measurable ways. The sleeping brain may contain many ordinary quantum-based chemical events because all its molecules are made of atoms. Ion channels work because proteins have quantum-shaped bonds. Neurotransmitters bind because molecular structures attract in specific ways. Enzymes help produce and break down messengers through chemical reactions. These foundations are essential, but they are not the same as evidence for exotic quantum consciousness. A careful view keeps scale clear. Quantum rules support the chemistry of neural tissue. Neural tissue supports sleep and dreaming through cells, circuits, rhythms, and signals. Accepted quantum biology shows nature using small effects where conditions allow, while dreams remain best understood through the organized activity of the living brain. Consciousness theories bring the inward path to the organized activity that allows experience to appear at all. The sleeping brain can make dream scenes, emotions, and a sense of presence. But the deeper scientific problem is how physical processes become subjective experience. Consciousness means the state in which there is something it is like for an organism to have an experience. It includes seeing, hearing, feeling pain, sensing the body, remembering, imagining, and being aware of a scene from a point of view. Science can measure brain activity, behavior, and reports after waking. Yet the private feeling of experience remains difficult to describe from the outside. This difficulty is one reason consciousness remains a serious open topic rather than a solved mechanism. One major approach explains consciousness through integration across the brain. Integration means that information from many separate sources becomes unified enough to support a single experience. A dream scene may include space, movement, emotion, memory, and body feeling, yet it appears as one ongoing situation rather than as many disconnected signals. In waking life, integration allows color, shape, sound, touch, and meaning to belong to the same object or event. The brain achieves this through networks that exchange signals across regions. No single cell contains the whole scene. The experience depends on patterns that are joined widely enough to form a coherent state. Integrated information theory is one formal attempt to describe this unity. It proposes that consciousness relates to how much a system's internal cause and effect structure is integrated, meaning how strongly the system forms a whole that cannot be reduced to independent parts. This theory tries to explain why consciousness may depend on the organization of a system rather than on material alone. It remains influential and debated. Supporters value its attention to unity and structure. Critics question how it should be tested, how its measures apply to real brains, and whether it can explain the details of human experience. It remains a scientific proposal, not a settled answer. Another important approach is global workspace theory. It compares consciousness to information becoming widely available across the brain. According to this view, many unconscious processes compete or cooperate below awareness, and a piece of information becomes conscious when it's broadcast to systems involved in attention, memory, decision, and action. The word broadcast does not mean sound or speech. It means wide neural availability when a face, a danger, or a remembered goal becomes globally available. It can guide many parts of behavior and thought. This theory fits many findings about attention and reportable experience, though it does not fully explain why availability feels like something from the inside. In sleep, global availability changes. During deep sleep, many brain regions enter slow coordinated rhythms, and information may not be widely available in the way it is during waking. During vivid dreaming, internal information may become available enough to form experience, while ordinary contact with the outside world remains reduced. The brain can create a scene that feels present, but it may not allow the same stable checking, planning, or memory storage that waking consciousness uses. This shows that consciousness is not all or nothing. It has levels and forms. Dream consciousness is real as experience, but it differs from waking consciousness in access, control, and relation to the outside world. Predictive processing offers another way to understand perception and dreaming. It proposes that the brain is constantly generating predictions about the causes of sensory signals, and then adjusting those predictions when signals differ from expectation. In waking life, perception is shaped by both incoming data and the brain's best model of the world. The brain does not passively receive reality, it actively interprets it. During dreaming, external sensory data are reduced, so internally generated models may become more dominant. A dream scene can then arise as the brain builds a world from prediction, memory, and emotion, with less correction from the outside. This approach explains why dreams can feel real while they unfold. The brain is always constructing experience, and waking construction is held tightly to the outer world by sensory evidence. Dream construction is guided more by internal dynamics, a hallway, a voice, or a moving body in a dream may feel immediate because the same general machinery that builds perception is operating with different constraints. Predictive processing does not require dreams to be messages from another reality. It treats them as internally generated models shaped by brain state, memory, and bodily signals. Higher-order theories take a different direction. They suggest that a mental state becomes conscious when the brain represents that state in a higher-level way. A visual signal alone may not be enough. The system must, in some form, register that it is having that signal. This approach tries to explain the difference between information processed without awareness and information known as part of experience. In dreaming, higher-level monitoring may be altered. The mind may see a strange event but not represent it as strange. The experience occurs, yet the reflective awareness that checks it against waking reality may be weak. This helps describe the unusual certainty of many dreams. Other theories focus on recurrent processing. Recurrent processing means that signals do not move only one way from early sensory areas to higher areas. They loop back and forth, allowing regions to influence one another repeatedly. This feedback may be essential for conscious perception. A simple feed-forward signal might support fast unconscious response, while repeated interaction may allow a stable perceptual experience. In dreams, recurrent loops can operate without strong outside input, allowing internally generated scenes to become vivid. The theory emphasizes local and regional feedback rather than only wide broadcasting. None of these theories fully solves consciousness. Each explains part of the problem. Integration helps explain unity. Global workspace helps explain access and reportability. Predictive processing helps explain construction and interpretation. Higher order theory helps explain awareness of mental states. Recurrent processing helps explain the importance of feedback. The brain likely uses many of these principles at once, and the exact relation between them remains debated. Scientific progress comes from testing predictions, measuring brain states, comparing waking and sleep, studying injury and anesthesia, and linking reports with neural activity. Consciousness during dreams shows why the problem remains delicate. The dreamer may see, move, fear, remember, and feel present, even while the body remains still and the outside room is dimly registered or ignored. The experience is private, but it is not disconnected from biology. It depends on sleeping brain networks, chemical states, memory traces, emotional systems, and patterns of communication. Theories of consciousness try to describe how these physical processes become an experienced world. They do not require unsupported quantum claims, and they do not remove the wonder of the mind. They place that wonder within the careful study of living tissue, where awareness appears as an organized state of the brain. The inner boundary is reached where known brain science meets the still unfinished problem of experience. The path has moved from the room around sleep to the body, the brain, its stages, dreams, memory, networks, waves, synapses, molecules, atoms, quantum limits, biological quantum effects, and theories of consciousness. At this deepest region, the careful view becomes quiet. Science can describe many conditions that allow dreams to occur. It can measure brain rhythms, map active regions, identify chemical changes, study memory processing, observe the effects of injury, and compare sleep with waking, anesthesia, coma, and meditation. Yet the full passage from physical activity to the felt presence of a dream remains incomplete. The known part is substantial. Dreams arise from the sleeping brain, not from a separate physical world. They depend on living neural tissue supplied by blood, shaped by memory, guided by emotion, and regulated by sleep stages. The brain can create internally generated scenes because perception itself is an active construction. In waking life, that construction is strongly guided by signals from the outside world. In dreaming, the outside signals are reduced, and internal patterns gain more influence. The dream becomes a private world made from brain activity, not a window into a hidden external realm. This conclusion is grounded in evidence from sleep laboratories, brain imaging, neurological cases, and ordinary changes in dream recall. The uncertain part begins with subjective feeling. A scientist can record brain waves during rapid eye movement sleep, and can note when a sleeper later reports a vivid dream. The recording may show patterns linked with visual imagery, emotion, memory, and reduced body movement. It can reveal much about the state of the brain. It still does not directly show what the dream feels like from within. A report after waking is a bridge, but it is incomplete. Words arrive after the experience has already changed, images fade, order is reconstructed, and emotion may remain clearer than detail. The private quality of the dream is real to the dreamer, yet it is difficult to place fully inside public measurement. This boundary is not a failure of science. It is a sign of the kind of problem consciousness presents. Science works by observing, measuring, comparing, and testing. Conscious experience is known first from the inside. It can be linked with brain activity, and those links can be studied with increasing precision. Still, the inner aspect itself is not visible like a wave on a screen or a molecule under an instrument. It must be approached through reports, behavior, physiology, and theory. The result is progress with humility. Consciousness is not outside nature, but its explanation remains one of nature's hardest tasks. Dreams make the boundary especially clear because they show experience without ordinary external contact. A person can see a world that is not entering through the eyes. The mind can hear voices that do not come from the room. It can feel motion while the body lies still. These facts do not require supernatural explanation. They show that the brain can generate perception-like experience from internal activity. Yet they also deepen the question of why such activity is accompanied by feeling at all. A neural pattern may be described in terms of cells, signals, and networks. The dream is lived as a scene. The relation between description and lived presence remains incomplete. Quantum physics often attracts attention at this boundary because it also challenges ordinary intuition. It shows that matter at small scales behaves in ways that do not resemble daily objects. It underlies atoms, molecules, chemistry, and therefore the brain. Some biological systems use specific quantum effects in limited molecular processes. Yet current evidence does not show that dreams or consciousness require exotic quantum states in neural tissue. The brain is warm, wet, and active, and many delicate quantum relations are expected to decohere quickly in such conditions. The mystery of consciousness is deep enough without adding unsupported mechanisms. Careful science keeps the quantum foundation of the matter separate from unproven claims about the mind. The hidden reality, then, is not a secret doorway behind dreams. It is the layered nature of reality itself. The stable room rests on moving air, heat, gravity, and matter. The resting body rests on organs, hormones, breath, and blood. The sleeping brain rests on networks, waves, synapses, and molecules. Molecules rest on atoms and quantum rules. Consciousness rests on brain activity in ways partly understood and partly unresolved. Each layer is real, and each layer has its own language. A dream cannot be explained only by atoms, though it depends on atoms. It cannot be explained only by memory, though it uses memory. It cannot be explained only by emotion, though emotion shapes it. It is a whole event in a layered living system. The deepest open questions remain calm and precise. How does integrated brain activity become felt experience? How does the brain create the sense of a self located inside a dream? How are some memories selected, altered, or ignored during sleep? Why do some dreams vanish at waking while others remain for years? How do emotion, body state, and neural rhythm combine into one scene? Research continues to approach these questions through better measurements, better models, and careful comparison across states of consciousness. The answers may not arrive as one sudden discovery. They may come as many small clarifications, each one making the boundary less dark. At the inner boundary, the sleeping mind is neither reduced to nothing nor lifted outside nature. It is a real experience produced by a real brain in a real body. It is shaped by biology, chemistry, physics, memory, and time. Its images are not made of light from the room, but they are made possible by matter that follows physical law. Its emotions are not visible from the outside, but they are tied to living circuits. Its strangeness does not prove another realm. It reveals how much ordinary reality contains. The quiet truth is that the mind is part of the universe studying itself from within, and in sleep that study becomes soft, private, and unfinished. The body remains in the quiet room, held by the same gravity, warmed and cooled by the same air, surrounded by the same ordinary matter. Sleep gathers the outer world into stillness without removing it. Walls keep their shape. Fabric rests against skin. Breath moves in a gentle rhythm. Blood continues its dark circulation, carrying oxygen and warmth through hidden channels. The brain remains active in softer ways. no longer fixed on the demands of open eyes, yet still preserving life, memory, and balance. Within the skull, signals rise and fade. Networks settle, join, and separate. Old traces of experience loosen from their daytime order. Some become images, some become feelings, and some pass without being remembered. A dream may form and vanish, leaving only a faint mood at the edge of waking. Another may remain for years, changed each time memory touches it. The dream is private, but it is not outside nature. It belongs to the living brain, to cells, chemistry, rhythm, and time. Deeper still, molecules hold their shapes through the laws of matter. Atoms follow quantum rules that make chemistry possible. These hidden rules do not turn dreams into other worlds. They support the world that is already here, from a drop of water to a sleeping thought. Reality is layered, and each layer rests quietly on another. The outer room, the breathing body, the sleeping brain, the dreaming mind, and the small foundations of matter all remain part of one continuous order. The mystery does not need to become louder. It stays calm at the boundary of knowledge. Science explains much, and some questions remain open. Consciousness still appears as a soft inner light within living tissue. Sleep carries that light through darkness, and the night holds it without hurry.